Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the Chiropractic Revolution podcast. I have a very special guest with me today, the co-founder of TCR that we've spent some time here, and we've had a really good discussion before the show, and I'm actually very excited to continue this discussion. So, Dr. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lane. It's great to be here with you today.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. But before we get into today's show, guys, if you're listening to this and or you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. It's right below. We're going to make sure that we update these with the podcast episodes. And if you're listening to this right now, whether you're on the treadmill, whether you're on driving, what would really, really help us, if you're listening to this on Apple, you scroll all the way down to the bottom, give us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review, because you know this is probably adding tons of value to your life. Please make sure you go and do that. And before we get into this episode, thanks so much. And again, if you are an Ambassador Plus, make sure you go to the new website, thechirorevolution.com. That new website is live. You can have your own username. You can have your login. You can buy your event tickets. You can buy a sponsorship if you want to. It's a one-stop shop for TCR.
So it's awesome. New website's awesome. Lane did a great job, and those personalized logins are going to be a game changer for everybody.
One-stop shop. So you and Dr. Heskett, who we're going to talk about here soon, you guys probably don't have to field all those questions of when the next event is. Is that right?
Right. Yeah, this is going to help a ton for sure. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Matt, I have heard a ton about you, and the fact that we get to sit down here in person and have this conversation brings me much delight, and so
Thanks,
I'm looking forward to this very much.
Yeah, likewise. I know we've worked together, but this is our first time fully face to face being together. So it's great to be with you, man. I've enjoyed our time so far.
For sure. Let's kick it off with a little get to know.
Sure.
Dr. Matt a little
Absolutely.
bit. Instead of going right back into the TCR stuff, let's get to know Dr. Matt a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Most interesting fact about Dr. Matt.
Most interesting fact. Dude, I don't know how interesting. I always make jokes with people about how dull I am, and that's why I had a partner like Mike Heskett who can handle the limelight. But I'd say most interesting fact about me would be probably my greatest call in life would be to be an awesome family man. So that's interesting to me, maybe dull to other people, but to me, the thing I think that brings me the greatest joy is to be a great husband and to try my best to be a great dad to my 4 kids.
I did a little research on you before, and I saw
really?
your 4 kids, so that's a perfect little segue in here. Ages, names, let's hear it.
Okay, well,
hopefully I don't put you on the spot there.
Yeah, that's okay. And and so many of our kids' names, 3 of our 4 kids' names are like basically tough to identify if they're male or female based on the name. So Peyton, so she is our only daughter. She's 17, soon to be 18.
Let's just go. We have some people here from Knoxville in the Tennessee area.
Yes.
Is there any ties to the famous Peyton from this area?
No. Definitely no ties or no inspiration at all from that. But understood now that we've been spending more time here in the Knoxville area. Dude, apparently if that guy just runs for governor, he's a shoo-in whenever he wants, right?
He's winning.
Yeah. So my daughter Peyton, though, I would tell you that she would for sure have every quality it would take to be governor in Tennessee if she ever decided she wanted to be that. But she is multi-talented, man. She can sing like an angel. She is as strong as, I don't know what a good analogy for, a strong woman is, but when I say strong, I mean physically strong. She's, mentally and emotionally strong as well, but she is physically strong. So she's going to be rowing next year for the University of Wisconsin.
Badgers.
And so she's going to be a Badger on the lightweight crew. So she chose that school because they have a very good lightweight team. And so she's a petite, she says she's 5'5", but that's a stretch. She's, she's just reaching like 5'4" 3/4. But she is strong. You would not want to arm wrestle her. She's gorgeous, and she has a voice on her. So we were just working through some of her electives and things like that she can take in school. So I hope she takes something like a vocal music performance class or something like that, because she's got a real talent there. So that's awesome. Then our next is my 16-year-old son, Mateo. And
I love that name.
Yeah, we do too. And we chose the name because we loved it, not because it's like a version of Matt like me or anything, but he's 16 years old. He has a heart of gold. That kid is integrity through and through. He cannot tell a lie to save his life. And he loves the Lord. He is a very gifted endurance athlete. So right now he's just sort of preparing for the fall cross country season, but he just came out of the spring track and field season. The reality, though, is his true passion is triathlon. And his dream one day is to be, a national elite triathlete and to compete at that high level. He's also very, very smart, so he'll be able to accomplish whatever he wants to as far as that stuff goes. After that's my son, Kalen. So Kalen is not just turned, but he's about 13 and a half. And he's a fiercely competitive young man as well. And he's got an intuition, like a spiritual intuition in him where he can just see if something's not right in a room before anybody else even picks up on it. He will not lose. He will keep competing until he wins at whatever he's doing. And he as well is very smart. He's got a great heart and loves the Lord as well. And then our youngest is Reese. Reese is 10 years old. He is going to be starting his 5th grade academic year this year, and he has a really unique blend of characteristics there. So he's got a lot of art side to him, so he's very, very gifted from a creative perspective, a music perspective, and then at the same token, he's our strong-willed child, man. He's the one who gives us a good run for our money, but he fights for what he believes in, so we love that about him. So
that's incredible. Good. And your wife's name?
Is Amy. So she is the glue that keeps it all together. Thank God, man. She is a huge, huge gift to me from the Lord. And she loves and supports everything that I am called to. She loves and supports what our kids are called to. And probably, I think she'd be comfortable with me saying that her greatest calling is to love and support her family. And she's good with it. She's comfortable with it. And she's fantastic at it.
Wow. I think that we couldn't have started off the episode a little bit better because, since my time working with the Chiropractic Revolution, you understand God, family, and chiropractic. And the way that you just described every individual of your family with your kids and your wife is a testament to how intentional you are as a husband. We've spent 8 minutes together, and I can already tell you that they probably love their dad. Thanks, and that is really, really cool. And I have an 11-month-old, and one of the reasons why I love getting to do this is because I get to sit here and be like, wow, Dr. Matt has an individual relationship with his kids to where you can say characteristics that's so, I'm blown away by what you just said about your kids.
Thanks, Lane.
Very
That's
honoring.
Awesome. Yeah, and that, I would say to you, is something that's really, really near and dear to my heart. I think a lot of times, Lane, that some of the challenges we face in our life are the threshing floor, the proving ground, the character building, those things that we need for the areas that we're really called to in our life. And so I think that God prepared me along the way to deliberately know what I would want to see from a family, and how that should look for my life, right? Not to say anybody else's, but for my life. The Lord was really clear with me. I remember being a teenage boy and just going through some struggles and some hurts and different things that were going on in my life. And I remember saying to myself in those teenage years that I would never let my family fall apart, ever, right? And that is something that I would say is probably the thing that is so special to me about the Chiropractic Revolution. I know we'll get into that, but that's so special to me about the Chiropractic Revolution is that it has such a deliberate family component to it. because I think that as you talk about having an 11-month-old, like, and the successes that you've had in your life and all those things, and it's easy to get pulled off track, right? And so, being deliberate about your family and what God's called you to with respect to that, I think is probably one of the most undervalued but most significant things that we as men especially really need to make sure that we keep proper inventory on. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. TCR.
Yes, sir.
Let's get into it.
Yes.
Let's go. So we've talked with Dr. Heskett, the other co-founder. He was episode 1.
And you came back for more episodes.
And I came back.
Yeah, so that's a good sign right there, man.
But we got to get the other side of the TCR story. So where did you and Dr. Heskett, what's your story as far as where this came from, your vision, your mission? In the very beginning, I want to get to it here in later, but in the beginning, take us back to 12 years ago? Was it right?
Yeah, so about 10.
10, okay.
About 10 years ago, yeah. So if you'd look at sort of like where revolution was first spoken into existence, I'd say we're going back 10 years. If you go back and you look at like how God wove the path of revolution, we're probably going back like 24, right, as far as that goes. Okay. But 10 years ago, I would have been with Dr. Heskett, and we would have been partaking in a predominantly Christian-oriented chiropractic coaching program out of Canada that I think both of us would say radically transformed our lives. Like, it was such a blessing for us to be a part of that. And so we were waiting in the Ottawa airport, and we were sitting there saying, if we could create what was on our hearts, right? What would that look like? Like, what would be the perfect expression of what we were desiring to be a part of? And, we were coming through this season where we were so incredibly blessed with all the mentorship and all the things that we had received. But I think both of us were also still feeling like there was just this little bit of nudging for us to maybe begin to step out, or just a bit of a nudging for something a little bit different at that time. And, I'd been a part of that organization probably for close to 10 years. I think Dr. Heskett for, close to 8, something like that. So it wasn't that there was anything wrong with that, but there was just this yearning inside of us for something. And so we spoke about like, hey, what would it really look like, and et cetera. And the conversation evolved. And it didn't take long, like probably within less than a half an hour, we had a bit of an idea of like, this is what God would really have us do if we were to do something, right? Because there was still an if. So at that point, we said we were going to have to pray about this and see what happens, and for the Lord to potentially release us to that, whatever the case is. And so we did. We prayed about it. We had a couple of telephone conversations. We had family prayer within our own households with our spouses, because obviously a huge family thing. It's not just a decision that he and I would have made as individuals. And then we finally decided that we would physically get together. So I remember I flew to Asheville, North Carolina, because there wasn't really any convenient flight for me. And then I drove from Asheville over here and spent the weekend with him. We kept praying through it and through it and through it. And at that point, it was officially birthed that weekend.
What year was that?
That would have been in June of 2012.
Okay.
So then I think in January of 2013 would have been like our first official gathering.
Okay.
So June of 2012, which is a decade ago now, we would have had that time where I would have been in Morristown in Tennessee, and the Lord would have released us to officially get the ball rolling.
So when you flew down here,
yes,
from Asheville, and then you got together with him, I'm always curious, just with people in their stories.
Yeah.
When you make a move like that and you come together and you're praying into that, do you feel like that weekend with you and Dr. Heskett solidified it for you? And what happened in those moments that you said, this is what's going to happen? Did you feel the Lord say, okay, yes, this is what you're going to do? Is that moment for you guys? Yeah,
so I think that I actually really felt from the initial conversation in Ottawa that it was just a matter of time. But it was in June where I would say that I felt like the Lord actually released us to be able to say, like, now it's, you can go, right? Like you can actually let the rubber start to hit the road kind of thing. But ultimately, I feel like in my spirit at that time in the Ottawa airport, I really felt like it was the Lord was saying like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna have you guys doing. But it was just a matter of, still needing that full release, right, from the Lord. Mm-hmm. So there was that. And then, when we were together in June, we just had some really special times, some real early morning prayer times together. I remember just being in the backyard and throwing around a football with his son Gage, who at that time, I think Gage is maybe 22 now, so Gage is probably like 12 at that point. And just having this sense in my spirit that like, yeah, this is what it should be like. Like, he and I are growing, right, early in the morning in prayer, and that should translate into some experience where, his son's going to grow with that. His wife's going to have an opportunity to grow, all those kinds of things, compared to, a lot of the transformation that I would have experienced in my own life would have been me at some retreat and then me coming home and trying to explain to my wife what just happened to me, and her not having necessarily had the same opportunity to create the same experience. And in fact, maybe even while I was gone experiencing transformation, she was under attack, right? Like, oftentimes that'll happen in relationships like that. And so I'm away having some amazing experience, and she's at home feeling the pressures of all kinds of stuff. And so my wife, thank God, was always such a beautiful participant's not the word, but just support for all the different growth things. But I just remember on so many occasions thinking to myself, like, man, I wish Amy was here. I wish Amy was here. Mm-hmm. And then as my kids got a little bit, like even when my kids got to be like 5 and 6, and like, not necessarily even teenagers going, like moving off to college, but I used to think the same thing, like, oh man, like I wish my kids were here playing with these other kids who believe the same stuff, right? And so, but that's what I remember, throwing that football around in the backyard at Michael Heskett's house, and his son Gage was there. And of course, Marge was inside, and she was part of the whole conversation around the dinner table and all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't like any of these things were getting birthed. And then I'd be, after dinner, I'd be on the phone with my wife, Amy, saying like, oh yeah, this is what we talked about. She's like, oh, hon, that sounds so awesome, right? Like, so we were all a part of it together. Mm-hmm. But at the same token, that I just remember that feeling, saying like, this is what it should be like. Like when we're going to go spend 2 to 3 days in a hotel working on growth, we should be coming away as a unit, like a family unit.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? Haven't had that.
Yeah. Once that idea was birthed, once the Lord released you guys into that,
yeah.
What was it like at the first couple of months or the first event? Like, what was it like for the people that are listening to this?
Yeah, so I think we were a little bit on the naive side as far as like what really goes into something like that. So, a lot of props and respect to all the people who held great events for us to be a part of. But yeah, so we got into this place where we thought, okay, we're going to need somebody who knows how to do some things, as far as graphic design, some websites, that sort of stuff. So, our first contact was, Michael knew this woman named Becky, and he's like, let me call Becky and see if Becky can help. So I think before I left that weekend, we might have had our first meeting with Becky. And so we connected with Becky, and Becky was going to help, do things like, create a little WordPress site and do some stuff like that. And we went and booked our first hotel, which was at the Opryland Hotel in Nashville.
Went big.
Yeah, we did, man.
Nice.
In fact, way too big. When you only have 8 people in a room, you don't need something that big, man.
First eight people though. That's intimate.
Yeah, intimate's the right word, right? So, but no, it was maybe a little bit more than 8. But yeah, it was great. But we actually ended up there at the weekend of this massive convention, and so we were in food lines all the time and stuff like that. But the bottom line is that's where it was birthed. And so we just did some basic preliminary organization stuff like that. But we really also felt like all the time we just wanted to make sure there was room for the Holy Spirit, right? So we never wanted things to be overly structured, too intense there. The whole vision was always that we'd get together, we'd share in these different realms. Like, so we share in the realm of our faith. We share in the realm of what we're going through as families, just authentic. Not like Lane, I can't tell you how to be a better dad, but I can share stories of, mountaintops and valleys of my life and what we've been through. And you can sit there and you can be like, oh man, like, do I ever feel such relief to know that, Dr. Matt and his wife went through this period for a whole month where they were, there was distance forming between them or whatever, right? Because, they had a baby sleeping in between them in the bed every night. And, it's, sometimes a bit of a killjoy, when you're a testosterone driven male, you're kind of thinking this.
Was that comment towards me? Because right now there's 11-month-old sleeping beside us.
There you go,
but he's sleeping. So that's all that matters right now.
That's a bonus for sure. Right. So long story short, in all that, like, dude, when we just get together and we share life, right? And I always believe that there's as much to be, gleaned from each other from sharing when we're at the mountaintop as when we're in the valley.
That's good.
And when we do that together and we do life together, man, we're so much better. And as chiropractors, okay, number one is, as a chiropractor, you are already swimming upstream. So you're swimming upstream based on that, okay? Then, of course, as believers, we are not of this world, right? So we are, again, swimming upstream. So as a believer chiropractor, number one is there has never been a more exciting space to be in, but at the same token, it is a very challenging space to be in because you're so countercultural in everything, right? You're countercultural in your kingdom walk because, it's not a worldly walk, right? You're countercultural in your view of success. You're countercultural in those areas. And then as a chiropractor, dang, like on top of it, what? You didn't give your kid a Tylenol when they had a fever? Like, you're countercultural there. And so we had all these great relationships. We had great chiropractic relationships in our life. But sometimes, I mean, we were blessed to have a lot of great, what I'm going to say is like nearly 100% congruent relationships in our life. But a lot of times we would have great chiropractic relationships, but maybe we didn't share our faith, right? Or we'd have great faith-oriented relationships, but we'd be raising our kids completely differently from, say, a health perspective, right? So I wanted my kids to be in and around an atmosphere of other kids who are raised in the same way so that when, my daughter's hanging around with Ben Rawls' daughter or hanging around with Mike Heskett's daughter or, hanging around with Scott Courtley's daughter, and they're all talking about, oh, well, my dad didn't let me date either till I was, 16 or whatever the age was there. You're not the only one, right? Like, a lot of times when I was just parenting my kids and we're going through these things and they look to just, another child in their classroom, it's like, you can look like the weird ones or whatever the case is because you're not medicating your kids the same way or you're not allowing them the same, worldly experiences. And so to have a group of people that you're doing life really, really similar in nature with is, it's just a great space to be able to support your marriage in, to be able to support your career as a chiropractor in, to be able to support the way you raise your kids. It's just powerful, man. We need each other. We need community like that.
Yeah, that's so good how you explain that, the swimming upstream. I made some notes there because that was good. That was really good. As far as a chiropractor goes,
yeah,
you've been practicing for how long, and what is it about chiropractic that you love so much?
Yeah, so that's I'll get to that because that's so easy. But
yeah.
I've been in practice for 20 years. So in 1998, my wife Amy and I went to school down in Atlanta, Georgia.
At Life?
Yeah.
Was it Life? Okay. I got a lot of friends that have gone to Life. In 1998, that's a good year. I mean, you have a daughter that is named Peyton.
Yeah.
And then 98, I mean, you've moved to the right place. I mean, you've got here to the right place.
Dude, God's been orchestrating all of it, man.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where, that's like back where I would have met Dr. Michael Heskett back then. But so basically graduated in 2002, and my wife and I always loved the South. Like, we felt at home in Atlanta very, very much. And our family relationships, extended family relationships, was the primary reason that we moved back to Canada. So got back to Canada in March of 2002, started practicing right away. And so I would have just had my 20th anniversary based on, so the town that I practice at in Canada is called Grimsby. And so I would have just completed 20 years of service to that beautiful community there. And it has been wonderful for us. You know, we raised our children in that community, lived and worked in that community, had a 4-minute commute to the office my entire, 20 years, at home every day at lunch, able to go to, all the kids' school events, everything. So it's just beautiful.
If you're looking at a map, where is that?
So you're going to be halfway between Toronto and Niagara Falls.
Okay.
And Niagara Falls is super close to, it's a border town, right?
Okay.
So you got Niagara Falls, New York right on the other side there.
Little fact, I don't know if you know this or not.
Probably not.
Probably not. You can go, so if you're up in the top right corner of Tennessee,
Yes.
up in the East Tennessee where I grew up, you can get to Canada before you can get to Memphis.
Come on.
Little known fact.
Dude, that's awesome,
Right?
man.
Little known
Very
fact.
good.
Well, as far as TCR goes,
Mm-hmm.
and what you have seen in the progression for the last decade to where it is now, and now that you're getting to spend some time down here in this beautiful state of Knoxville in Tennessee,
Yeah.
what has it been like for you from your standpoint as a co-founder of this, from having this idea to birthing this idea to being a chiropractor on the side? Your profession is a chiropractor, but then you have this business as well. What's it been like for you this past decade?
Yeah, it's been overall, when I look at it, Lane, from the macro, it has been absolutely awesome. There's, of course, times like everything that when you look at it on the micro, that there's frustrations, there's challenges, there's these thoughts of is this even making a difference? The effort that goes into it, is it are people's lives really better because they get to come to TCR and they get to spend time there? Michael and I always talk about our heart is to see marriages be saved at TCR because people get to come and be real and realize that there's there's a whole community that not only can support them but can relate with them and can say, hey guys, don't worry, we've been there too. I remember going to Mexico with some great friends of ours, and so there was 2 different couples that went, and so the Heskets came, like Michael and Marjorie, myself, my wife Amy, and then some friends of ours, Mark and Carol. And man, the best part of that whole trip was that we could sit there and relate for a whole week together. And I remember Marjorie, because we were, we had 3 kids at that time. My wife Amy had just had a miscarriage, and we were going through some challenges with regards to that, but yet, we had tons of great victories. But I just remember Marjorie saying, your kids are so little right now. She's like, don't worry, guys. It gets better. It gets better. It's okay, right? And I still remember that, right?
Yeah.
That was probably 10, 12 years ago. And just to have somebody who sits there and says we've been there. We know, right? We're just a few years ahead of you. We're going to tell you it's going to be okay, right? You're going to get there. And same thing with chiropractic, man. You start out a chiropractic office, dude, it's not just hang a shingle on the wall and all of a sudden there's lineup of people, right? You're out there, you're trying to transform the way people think about health, the way they engage in their health, how they understand stewardship, how God's called them to be well, that they have way more inside of them than they believe that they actually have inside of them, all these different things, right? You need to have people who have gone before you who are going to tell you, hey, it's going to be okay, man. Just keep doing the right thing. And it's going to be okay, right? You're going to pay your bills. You're going to feed your family. Patients are going to get better. This thing works, right? So
Man,
it's huge.
That's so good. That was good. You could tell that you were passionate about that line right there.
Well, I'll tell you, man, because that is, I needed that, right? And I think that's why I must be passionate about it, is because I needed that throughout my life in so many different areas. As much as I needed to hear mountaintop stories from people, I needed to hear their valley stories too.
Yeah, that's good. Getting in the rabbit hole per se with people that are in the season of life that you're doing and have the similar values, I think is so important. It is so important. And I think that's one of the cool things about TCR. I'll do a shameless plug here because I'm working with you guys, but you know, that event that I got to go to up in Sevierville this past time, I was blown away by the camaraderie and the family feel. And, you know, because I have been to events like that before, and they're very structured, and there's no family there, and it's like, you know, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that, and then you leave an event like TCR, and you can see the change that's happening with the kids, and their wives are sitting in the room there, and you're like, man, this is so neat. Like, you know, you're just not leaving your spouse at home. You get to experience what others are experiencing. You get to see your kids having fun, and it's just not, you know, babysitters per se, and that's what's so neat about it.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think instantly, like, Lane, if I was to say, like, if I had to go into anywhere, it doesn't matter. If I was going to go and meet with a psychologist and try to explain what I'm going through, I'd probably need an hour, right? Or if I was going to go and speak to some, like, coach, let's say, who's not a chiropractor, like, you know, somebody who's just into, you know, personal development and coaching, I'd probably need the same thing. Like, if I was having these great victories, the whole thing would have to be prefaced by this story, and I'd have to explain why this equates to success and why this equates to this and that. When you come to TCR, man, you could say like 6 words, and I'd be like, dude, I know, isn't that the best? It's a great, like, you'd just be like, and then I adjusted this kid, and it's crazy, man. Like, their fever broke, and they stopped throwing up, and I'd be like, isn't that the most amazing thing, right? Like, you wouldn't have to have this whole backstory, right? And it could go either way. Like, there's just this thing when you're with people who get you and also, like, do kind of like a bit of a version of what you do. Yeah. It's just easy, man. It's awesome.
Wow. The later part of TCR, the past 2 to 3 years, what have you seen that you are excited about?
Yeah, so I was just talking about this with Michael and Caroline, you know, probably a couple hours ago. I'm most excited.
I think we should have Caroline on the podcast, don't you? In that voice. Don't you think?
Oh, man, yeah. I love it.
If she's listening to this, Caroline, text me right now and say, I'll come on there.
Yeah. So basically, what I love about that room right now is the unplanned density of that room. So you kind of alluded to the fact that you've been to lots of other events, et cetera, et cetera. But at the Chiropractic Revolution, first of all, it has attracted a core of people with the most beautiful hearts that I have been around. We all know beautiful, beautiful people, but we are blessed at the Chiropractic Revolution to have a room that is so authentic and loving and transparent and vulnerable and all those things. And you can come into that space, even though Chiropractic Revolution has had people who have been a part of it for 10 years, you could come into that space for the very first time and feel at home, you know? And so I'm really excited about what I'm just going to say is the density or the quality of that room. And when I say room, I just mean everything that's in there. So you got the Holy Spirit in there. You got great families in there. You've got beautiful hearts in there. And then I'm really excited as well about the fact that I think that the last couple of years have been more challenging for people who are really committed to certain values than I remember ever experiencing as an adult. So it's really come to the surface these last couple years. And I think that because of that, there's never been a better time for TCR ever, right? Because we've come to really, really get to this place where our values are very, very important, right? And I'm not trying to dictate what people's values are, but I think it's important that we have communities of people that we share those values with to recognize that our values aren't wrong, right? and that our values are awesome. And, when I come together with you and I hear that, you have these parts of your life that you're unwavering in, and that you're fully committed to the way that you're going to, love your wife, and you're fully committed. Dude, there's enough people out there telling you that, like, the most important thing in your life is that you be happy. Mm-hmm. Right? And I would sit there and I'd be like, you would never get that at TCR. Mm-hmm. We'd never sit there and be like, the most important part of Lane's life is that Lane would be happy. I'm like, dude, that's a lie from the pit. Mm. Dude, that is not, like, the goal of your life is not to make you happy, brother. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not it, right? Happiness will be a beautiful byproduct of living the life that God called you to live, right? But a lot of people's lives that they're called to live, can be hard as far as that goes. So I really feel not only excited about the quality of the room that's there, but also the fact that, I think we're positioned to be more relevant than ever in the time that I'm aware of anyway, as far as that goes.
5 years from now, if we're sitting here,
yep,
what's success look like for you for TCR?
Touching an increasing number of people who need to experience that community, right? Not that it needs to be a certain number, Lane, but what I do feel in my spirit is that there are many people out there who desperately need a community like the Chiropractic Revolution that don't even know it exists, right? And so one of the things that we really feel on our hearts right now is to do a better job helping people become aware that it's there for them. And so it's not that it has to become 1,000 people or 2,000 people or anything like that, but we all know, everybody who has a role right now within the Chiropractic Revolution knows that there are people who don't know that the Chiropractic Revolution exists, who desperately need it, and our mission right now is to make them aware that we're there for them.
If this episode was a minute long,
yes,
and it was something that you could send to someone that you want to come join the Chiropractic Revolution, what would you say to them right now on here?
I would say, we want you to come home to the Chiropractic Revolution, because it's a place that you might not even have known that you need, that you so desperately need, so that you can be filled and refreshed in a way that you can go out and do the work that the Lord has called you to in all areas of your life. First of all, in your family life, your professional life, the way that you serve the Lord. Come and be refreshed and allow this community to help you in that journey that the Lord has for you.
Anything else on your heart when it comes to TCR? I know we'll probably have many more conversations like this, but getting to know you, getting to know your family, the TCR background, the future, the mission, anything else you want to end with today?
Yeah, I want to say I truly feel that although the Lord gave Michael and I the vision to start TCR, that by the grace of God, He has brought such amazing people alongside of it, people who have served as board members, people who have been legitimate employees. But I feel like it is absolutely mind-blowing to me the way that the Lord has connected us to people who 10 years ago, I wouldn't even have known they existed. If you said to me like, oh, well, who's, Courtney Mosley, who's Justin Mosley, who's Ben Rawl, who's Pete Camille, I couldn't have told you who those people were. I had no clue at all, right? But the God who knows what, every hair on everybody's head and, everybody's needs, who's always, providing in ways that are exceedingly abundantly greater than we could ever think, do, say, or imagine, just blows me away with how He connects people to the Chiropractic Revolution in such a beautiful way. And so that's one thing that I would say I would never have been able to predict, and continues just to kind of blow my mind all the time. I'm
not a chiropractor, but I can honestly sit here and say through the conversations in the way that I've had with Dr. Heskett, with you, Dr. Ben Rawl, the room that I sat in there, I can say from an outsider looking in, thank you for being obedient and following what the Lord had for you guys, because this has been a breath of fresh air. It really has.
That's
to know
awesome.
that something exists like TCR. I know this is a little bit of an episode to get to know you, but I've been blown away. And if you're listening to this and you've heard about the TCR and you've heard some of these episodes and you've heard this podcast, it is exactly what these men of God talk about. And I know we're going to talk to some women eventually on here too. But I think it's one of the most unique God-fearing organizations I've ever heard about. And if you listen to 40 minutes of this, we talked about chiropractic, but it's really about God, family, and then chiropractic care.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's so awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, Lane, for that. Just encouragement to sort of say, what you're already perceiving in the short time that you've been a part of it, because that's really, it's significant and it's important, right? Like the chiropractic revolution is special. I mean, we even struggled to explain it, right? It's one of those things where experiencing it is the best way to be able to know what it's really about. And I don't feel like there is any other space in chiropractic that's like it, which is awesome, because, we're not cutting anybody's grass. We're just, something unique and different. And there's so many needs within chiropractic, but this is for sure a blessing for all of us to be a part of this particular niche of Christian, God-fearing, family-loving chiropractors.
Mm-hmm. So well said. Well, I know it's been a decade since you and Dr. Heskett have started the chiropractic revolution.
That's crazy.
It is. But I'm believing and speaking out that it's going to get even bigger, and you're going to be able to serve. And I can see it. I really can.
Yeah,
and
we
it's
can
been
too,
like
Lane.
you guys.
Yeah, we're in complete agreement with that, brother. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
man.
that's exciting.
Yep.
Well, guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Chiropractic Revolution podcast. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, do us a favor. Don't log off. Please hit subscribe. That will absolutely help us, because, again, the TCR is going to get big. And so you can say you were one of the first subscribers. And then if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, if you just scroll down, give us 5 stars and give us a little bit of a review. It really is that simple. With that, we thank you for listening to this episode, and we will see you next time.